Okay, so this is day 2 of a 30-day challenge speaking to camera in order to get better at speaking on camera. Adjusted my camera a little bit. It was quite a bit too high. A lot of times, what I notice is that I'm either looking up to it or looking down, maybe a little bit. What I found is it I need to adjust my camera because sometimes I find myself doing this or doing this and nodding my head, and it's kind of distracting. And so I don't notice it typically till I've already started editing. So I was trying to adjust the camera to maybe keep that from happening. One thing that I thought might be helpful in doing these videos is to have some sort of topic, a topic that I think that would help distract me from the overall nervousness of speaking on camera. A lot of times I find that distraction does a lot for me to get my mind off of the task that I'm maybe nervous about or uncomfortable with. And so I thought if I bring up a topic and speak on a topic that I'm comfortable with, that this would help improve these videos. So we'll try it out. We'll see how this works and go from there. Now, I mentioned before that I speak on another channel that I run that is for a community, and that community is the Overflow Community. You can check it out. I'll try to tag it down below in the video or in the description. I'll try to put a tag so you can check that out. One of the topics is on a recent podcast episode. It was episode 55. It was titled There It Is Again. And this video or this topic or this podcast is speaking about patterns and patterns in our thought process, in our thoughts. So, uh, one of the things that I kind of start out going into in this episode is talking about how humans just love patterns. We look for patterns, our brains look for patterns, we're wired to spot and identify patterns because it helps our brains, it kind of makes things easier for our brains. So if we can identify a pattern, then our brain, whenever we see something that lines up with something we've seen before, we know kind of what to expect in the future. And so when it comes to our brain health or our mental health, we can apply the same topic of patterns. And so a lot of people may have certain behavioral patterns that when they get down to, like, if they take, for instance, if you write down your negative thoughts for 24 hours, you will most likely, when you look back on them, you will see a trend. You will see something in common within those thoughts. And so it's very helpful to take a diary of your negative thoughts, and so you can examine them and pick out any patterns. But what happens when we do that is we become aware of kind of what our triggers are, and then what happens once that trigger is met. So, um, how that helps us is that when we see a trigger, we know, hey, this is most likely going to cause us to respond in a certain way. And then we can kind of capture that thought and say, okay, I just experienced that trigger, and typically I would respond in that way, but this time I'm gonna try to do it a different way. I'm gonna try something different. So by examining or keeping a diary and going over this, it makes us more aware of those triggers and those patterns and how we behave in response to those triggers. And then as we become more aware of what those triggers are and we learn to spot those triggers in our daily lives, we can begin to try to kind of interrupt that pattern. And hopefully we can make adjustments. Maybe we try something and the first time that something does not work whatsoever. And so the next time we experience that trigger, we can try something different. And as we keep experimenting, we can finally find something that works to kind of interrupt the flow of how we typically respond to a trigger. I hope that's helpful. In the episode, we kind of talk about that process, and it's kind of like connecting the dots. As you start to see what these triggers cause you to do, you can start tracing it through and hopefully improving your behavior and getting better at responding to these triggers. Again, this is day 2 of a 30-day challenge of speaking on camera. One thing that I'm really trying to work with in my speaking on camera is trying to be more authentic and doing less performing. What I have noticed in a lot of my videos is instantly when the camera comes on, I feel the need to somewhat perform. And so that is okay, I guess, but it's not really natural and authentic, and I think that comes across. So what I've tried to do in this video is to speak on something that I'm a little bit familiar with so I can relax a little bit and be distracted by the topic and not be so focused on my nerves. So I hope that was helpful. I hope that's come across in this video. And this was day 2. Looking forward to tomorrow and the days ahead. Talk to you soon.